Welcome to Entrepreneurial Entrails for some short stories on the guts and glories of being an entrepreneur. Hey, it's Elizabeth with Entrepreneurial Entrails, and Friday kind of went shit sideways, so I didn't do my Get to Know Me Friday, which, for the most part, not a big deal, but I thought I would try and make up for it. So today's topic is how did I get to where I am now? Because my career path has been a little funky chicken. It's kind of gone all over the place. And part of the reason for that has been I never really have been able to make clear career goals, which, some would say, oh, you're exploring your renaissance or whatever it is. And others would argue and be correct that I just have a hard time making those kinds of plans, which is very true. So what happened? So high school, I had no particular focus, and I still to this day can't really figure out why not, other than there was a lot of, family crap going on. So I ended up falling into travel and tourism and got a weird invitation from a college that I'd never applied to join the travel and tourism program. And my mom was like, great, then you can get a job as a cruise director and then I can get free cruises, which, that's kind of logical thinking. So I gave it a go and went to be a flight attendant and what did I do? I was in a all-female residence for my first year. And remember calling my dad about 2 months in and crying on the phone and saying, Daddy, get me out of here. And unfortunately, in the January of that year, my dad passed away and kind of screwed up my focus for the next year and a half. So travel and tourism, I ended up completing the program, but was 1 credit short from getting my diploma or my certificate or whatever it's called. But still got a job in the industry and worked at the airport for 4 months with a group called Signet Travel, where I was a ticket agent. And I got to tell you, people at the airport are freaking weird and illiterate. I had one guy ream me out because he was like 100 kilograms or something over his allotment, and it was my fault because he hadn't read the ticket properly, and I was every name in the book for that one. That was super special. And then I had another person who needed a ticket to Vancouver. I believe it was a one-way ticket, can't remember. But, even back then, so this is like 20 years ago, whatever, tickets to Vancouver weren't cheap. Didn't have debit then, so we didn't have any, this guy didn't have any checks, and we didn't accept checks anyway. Credit card got declined, couldn't get the cash, and, he's trying to call in favors and get people to come down and give him money and what have you. And shocking that nobody would. And would I please give him the ticket without paying, and then he would send the money when he got to Vancouver? And that seemed like a really reasonable solution to him, which wasn't so reasonable to myself or my manager. And this guy went a little batshit and decided to ream me out and call me a variety of colorful names, none of which really worked for me. And the job started at like 3 o'clock in the morning because you had to be, I remember I had to pull somebody off a plane because there was a fraudulent ticket, and it was stressful. So my career in travel and tourism, that got cut kind of short, kind of quick, because it just wasn't my bag. And kind of bounced around for a little bit. What was that? 91 to 92. And ended up working in restaurant and retail for a while, which I really enjoyed. I've worked for Cultures. I've worked for Swiss Chalet. I've worked in children's wear, women's wear. I worked for Tabby International and Kids Mart and all kinds of different places. And started investigating my other options for education. And at this point, I'd met my, soon-to-be husband. And I have always been fascinated by medicine. In fact, in high school, one of my goals was to be an obstetrician. But just a variety of circumstances, it didn't happen. So I decided to be a medical office administrator and went and researched the program and took the 2-year medical office administration program and ended up with my, again, I don't know if it's a diploma or a certificate when it's college, in medical office administration, which is anatomy, physiology, pharmacology, office management, at the time typing, because it was 94 to 96. and did that job for 10 years, which I really actually loved working in medicine. I loved what I learned. I worked in family medicine, respirology, cardiology, dermatology, worked in a walk-in clinic. I've worked at St. Joseph's Healthcare in Hamilton, all kinds of places, and just loved it. And ended up, what did I end up doing? I ended up being an instructor for the Medical Office Administration program. So I ended up after 10 years teaching pharmacology and terminology and accounting and computer studies and what have you. And I love that too. I had amazing students. But I worked for a college that wasn't the most reputable. And they asked me to compromise my principles and lie to my students. And that's sort of a deal breaker for me, as it should be for most people. So I ended up getting a recruitment offer to go back to being a medical secretary, and tried one position and ended up working for a crazy psychiatrist who, I tell you, when somebody pulls out a horsewhip under their dining room table to go scare squirrels in the backyard, you gotta know things aren't quite reaching the top floor. I don't know. Serious crazy pants there. And anyway, so my husband was going back to be a millwright, and I was applying for the corporate communications program at Sheridan. Ended up, happenstance, I got a phone call from a friend of mine who said Girl Guides of Canada was hiring, and I was a leader at the time. And I applied for the job, brand new position as a unit administrator for Girl Guides of Canada, and got the job, which was fantastic. One of the best jobs I've ever had. 4.5 years. I worked with over 200 leaders per year and registered over 700 girls per year, which was amazing. And, helped the leaders with banking and with programming questions and with camp planning and all kinds of stuff. Just fantastic. But I have a short attention span, and 4.5 years was getting kind of long, regardless of the position. And so I ended up applying to go back to college for a third time. And in, 2011 to 2012, I graduated with high honors and got my postgraduate in corporate communications. And in between, actually, the Medical Office Administration and the Girl Guides of Canada, I took a course through the Centre for Skills and Development called Career Explorations Express. And it was a 1-year intensive course. And I highly recommend, if you're having a pivot point in your career and you're not quite sure what to do, seek out a local job skills center within your area and see what services they have there, because you'd be surprised. And 2 things came out of that. One was I had to write a piece as part of an exercise, and the instructor came up to me after I'd finished reading it to the class and asked if she could include it in the curriculum. And she told me, she's like, you're a really good writer. You need to, you have good communication skills and this and that. And I had heard that before, but I don't know why, it was different coming from her. And then I also had a skills assessment done through the center. And I walked in after I'd completed it, and the counselor said to me, well, I got good news and I've got bad news. And I got to tell you, I didn't realize you could have bad news on a skills assessment, but I thought, hey, there's a first time for everything, and it is me, so something weird's going to happen. And he said, well, the good news is you can do whatever you want. I said, well, that's great. He's like, you want to be a nuclear physicist, you could achieve that. You want to be a garbage man, you could achieve that. Equally important jobs. You want to do, whatever you want. And I said, okay. And he says, the bad news is you can do whatever you want. So there was nothing startling that showed up within these results that led me to a particular career choice. And that's sort of been my struggle my entire life. There's never been anything except for medicine that's completely jazzed me up. So I was still at a bit of a loss. But the writing bug had hit, the communications bug had hit. And so after 4.5 years, I applied to and was accepted to the corporate communications program, and so glad I did. And now I'm in a position where I'm trying to apply my skills and my experience and everything else to making my business work. But it's another learning curve. It's another opportunity where I'm having to do a lot of research and learning to make my business successful and what have you. And so I'm really grateful to have the post-secondary education that I have, because it taught me a wide variety of skills as far as research and planning and project management and all that kind of stuff. But the other side of me says, and I did a podcast about this earlier, is, wouldn't it be nice if I had just chosen the easier route? So I guess my point is on the get to know me that, I've done everything from being a nanny to working in a fruit and vegetable store to being an ear piercer for a small jewelry store that I worked for. I was an event security guard, so I've done security for a lot of concerts and shows, and Bette Midler was freaking awesome. So was Meatloaf, so was Tom Petty. And did you know, by the way, that at the time anyway, Tom Petty used to take his dog on tour? It was very cool. And I'm now bringing all of those skills to bear on what I hope is the career for the rest of my life, which is, in a communications consultant and event planner situation. So that's me. Very weird and diverse background, which kind of goes with my weird and diverse personality. And if you're struggling which way to go, take a look at what you've done. There's always ways to take skills and experiences that you've used and apply them to new opportunities. And I guess, the ending is just know you have the guts and glory to make your own story. And I hope this inspires you to take some chances and keep moving forward in pursuit of what will hopefully be one day your forever job. And if you're already in it, good for you. That's awesome. Hope you're having a fantastic day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.